content today, I'm gonna do the usual thing. I'm gonna go into the play session and see what's going on. Let's have a look at that. It looks like a lot of colleagues are kind of sitting this one out, but you can see still a few engaging in the assessment. I'm not incredibly surprised because, as you know, we have increased the number of sessions. We have an afternoon session and an evening session, plus sessions even during the weekend. And this was an explicit request that all of you made, that we were very happy to oblige, but it came at a little bit of a cost of spreading the interactions in the multiplayer sessions, but still has been really cool. So no problem for me, and it definitely gives you more flexibility. But let us know how you go. Let us know if you have any question about that, or if you wanted us to change any of this. But looking into the content for week 4, we are gonna step into macroeconomics. And one of the first things that you're gonna notice is that the first paragraph in that week 4 chapter is circular flow model. And that really is the main difference between micro and macro. Macroeconomics is about the general equilibrium model. This may be the most fundamental difference. What do I mean by general equilibrium? In micro, you are gonna see, which is the content that you have looked into week 1 to 3, you're gonna see that we take each market in isolation. And we say, what happens if we change this in this market? But the general equilibrium actually consider all the markets at once. And there are important lessons to be learned when you actually consider what happens to the markets when they are all acting at once within the economy. It gets more complicated, but it's also more insightful. And lucky for us, the game is already a general equilibrium model, so even if you didn't realize, you were already playing a general equilibrium model. So I hope the transition is basically seamless for you. Let's have a look at what I mean. I am participating in this assessment in this planet, so I'm just gonna jump in here. And you see that I've set up already a little economy for myself. What I have here is just a little house for my retiree. And let's have a look at the market, and let's talk a little bit about what the circular flow model is. Imagine, okay, now I'm gonna look into the labor market, which is one of the most interesting ones. Okay, you can see that we have some supply and some demand. And in fact, there is quite a bit of demand even further down here for work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just create another worker here in my economy. Yes, confirm. Bring that person in. Fantastic. We are running the tick now, and I've got my worker here. The important thing to notice is that in order to generate and have a general equilibrium model, we need to consider not just individual markets, but also all the input markets, which is something that we are already doing because we have the supply and demand for labor. So this is an input of production. But then we also have, for example, the supply and demand of fish and meat. So we have these markets as well that are using labor as an input. So we can start really building a general equilibrium model. One of the first intuitions of the general equilibrium model is that if your retiree all of a sudden, as part of the family dynasty, decides not to consume anymore because they want to save some money, well, that would be a little bit of a problem, right? Because the worker that also belong to your economy would now have no job, right? Essentially, what we are saying is that if nobody is demanding fish, if there will be no demand of fish, like in fact there is very little demand at this point in time, then there would be also, by extension, no demand for labor, because if the fisherman is not hiring labor, that will also become a lack of demand for labor. But if labor, if this worker is not hired anymore and this worker is essentially supporting the retiree, then the retiree will have no money to spend, right? And that's the Keynesian intuition. That's why general equilibrium is so important. The retiree thought, I'm gonna save money by not consuming, but by doing that, it put the worker, who is actually actively supporting the retiree by sending money to them, gave them no jobs, and so no more money flowing to the retiree as well, hence a situation where the retiree is actually not saving anymore, but also not consuming. That's the circular flow of the economy, where is representing by essentially money constantly changing hands across three main components. We have the government here. In this case, the government, as you probably noticed, is demanding energy for the entire island. That's their main activity. And then we have workers, and which are the households in the circular flow model. And then we have productive locations like fishermen's or farms or wind turbines that are essentially there to do the productive part. They hire work from households, and so money is literally circulating across the circular flow model, exactly like your textbook suggests in the game itself. One thing that you may wonder is, why do we need to know about the circular flow of the economy? And the idea is, it's kind of important. You probably have seen governments coming up with policies in the past asking people, please consume because we need the economy to keep going. And that's kind of really related to what I just said, that if the retiree, which is the big consumer in our economy, stops consuming, that there will also be a shortage of work, and that will change the wage inequilibrium for workers and would put potentially the economy into a recession. So it's very important for policy that we understand how all of this is connected. Just to give you another quick example of how different is this from micro, even though I could have fooled you telling you that what you've seen so far is in fact a microeconomic model. It is, but it's also like tying into this general equilibrium as well. I mean, think of this. This is the labor market, and this is actually the technology firm demanding labor because students are upgrading their technology. So this is an economy so far, mostly driven by consumption in tech. Well, if we add more workers, right, this will change the supply of labor up to a point where it might end up even changing the market price. The more workers are gonna just essentially create a change in the market equilibrium. But this will reverberate into all the other markets, because the vegetable market, for example, requires as input workers. So a higher wage will affect their cost of production, and so their reservation price, and hence their shape of the supply curve. Everything is connected in a macroeconomy, and it's really important to understand how this ties into the economy. And at this point, we haven't really talked about policy, government policy, but you're going to see in your course later on in week 5 and 6, we're going to talk more about why this is important and how the government think about doing interventions in the economy. Very cool. I mean, I was thinking maybe I could give you an example of a farm. Let's see if I can spawn one. Or maybe a fisherman location. Let's see. There we go. Fisherman. Let's do that. I hope I'm not winning this session. Okay, I got another bidding slot. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show you this. This thing that just happened. Let me close this. And let me confirm. Okay, cool. Now I have my fisherman location. Look at what this is. This is the circular flow of the economy at its best. So we have workers working, they're making money, right? And that's for their retirement, and they also support the retirees if they had any, and they will appear at the top here as the society grows older. You're going to have the granny flat on top of these houses. So this is money that the workers are making, saving for retirement, but also supporting retirees if they had some in their families. Okay, so this is them making money. Then there is the government spending money in energy. So some of these workers are actually working to produce energy. So the government is paying the firms to produce energy, which you can probably see here, energy market. So the government, let's see which one is my government. Yeah, this one here. This one here is in fact my government right there. And it's buying energy from this firm, which is, oh, it's a wind energy. This one is actually not using labor, but it could be, for example, a natural gas firm that actually requires labor. Okay, very well. Now the government is paying the firm to get this energy. The firm is paying the labor. The labor is in my island, and so I can get I get some of the money back that the government has paid right into my workers. Let's have a look. I am making $6 and I am actually spending $18, which means that the circular flow is not happening only in my economy, but I'm probably also supporting labor and firms in other economies. So at the moment, my currency is literally draining from my society to other societies. But this is the circular flow of the economy. The government could, for example, impose a tax by going into the bank, and then government policy. It could impose, for example, a residential tax. Let's say it's $2 or something. Oh, $3, that's a little bit much. I'm going to confirm my policy change. There we go. You can see now that they're making $3, but also very soon, okay, in the next cycle, they're going to have to pay the tax. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, they are not getting $3 anymore, but just $1, because $2 are actually going to the government now, being transferred. So this is, again, the circular economy. I don't think my fisherman is producing. Let's have a look at the output market. Yeah. So my fisherman is not efficient enough, and also there isn't really demand. All these retirees are not finding supply. What I could do is, I think I can upgrade. Don't have enough money. Okay, I'm gonna purchase via government. So I'm gonna get a bit of an update. You can see that I'm reducing my marginal cost of production. Oh, this is expensive for my government. I don't think, let me see if my government can support this, but I would still be not competitive. This is not my comparative advantage to produce fish, so maybe I shouldn't actually doing this. Maybe I should instead focus on agriculture, where I might have a better comparative advantage. There's actually no demand for agriculture. Okay, so someone in this planet should really, especially those that have this low cost of production, should definitely be more active here, because even if I do management upgrade to be more effective, I cannot do that enough to become productive here. This is fun. I'm basically now playing the game, and I shouldn't, because I don't want to affect the course marks of these students here. But as you can see, we have been talking about how this relates to macro and the circular flow of the economy. One other thing to keep in mind is that, yes, this is kind of the GDP calculation, like, for example, the dollar value of any final good transaction. So you can think of this dollar like giving you good hints on what the GDP is and how it relates to the concepts in your textbook. But remember, we are also carrying over the idea of surplus from microeconomics, and surplus is a little bit different. So the GDP just capture the dollar amount of the final good transactions, for example, and just sum them up sum them all up. For example, if someone buys a fish, or if someone buys technology, the value of that transaction gets added up if it's a final good into the GDP. But surplus, it's a little bit different. It's related, but it's not exactly the same. If you want to know what surplus is the distance between the willingness to pay of a consumer, the demand point, and the price that they actually pay down here, and also the difference between the price that a producer gets and their marginal cost of production. So it captures a little in more detail how much surplus they get out of a transaction by comparing their willingness to pay the reservation price with the actual transaction price. Whereas the GDP is just more interested in prices and just adding up the transactions. So this is how we can think about GDP macroeconomics through the lenses of the game. And when it comes to aggregate supply and aggregate demand, you can think of this as just summing up all this demand and all these supplies across all these markets, just sum them up to create one big demand and one big supply. That's what more or less macroeconomics is all about. Just calculating an aggregate demand and aggregate supply across all markets for an economy, and actually focusing on that big picture, the big picture of basically aggregating everything, the standard demand and standard supply curve still, but aggregated across all markets to capture the bigger picture and the trajectory of an economy. And this is all for your week 4. That's really all the links to the content. And looking forward to seeing you to the next stream when we are going to talk about the next week, start talking about financial markets and how they're represented in the game. Thank you so much for coming. Hope to see you really, really soon. Have a great day, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.